Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience episode number 222. Subscribe to our mailing list to receive weekly updates and exclusive content delivered right to your inbox. Go to drfrancesrichards.com. That's drfrancesrichards.com to subscribe to our mailing list and be entered into our monthly drawing. That's drfrancesrichards.com, drfrancesrichards.com to subscribe to our mailing list and be entered into our monthly drawing. We promise we won't spam you or sell your information. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black entrepreneur experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Founder of K Parks Consulting, KPC, awarded the Enterprising Woman of the Year Award, ranked 965 on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing private companies list, ranked 18 on the Top Education Companies, Inc. 5000 fastest growing private companies. Welcome, Kizzy Dominguez. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your company?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Richards, for having me on and for such an awesome introduction. One thing I would like to really share is that I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a fancy business plan or idea or teammate. It happened. And that when I was younger, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I used to pick up used golf balls that were located behind my friend's house in Danville, Illinois at the time. And I would clean them and parse out the balls because I knew the value because of my grandma Clump. And so I would give her the really good ones, of course. And then I would resell the other ones to golfers through the fence. And that spirit's always been with me. I've always been extremely entrepreneurial, and I always knew I was going to earn an advanced degree in psychology. But I never had this grandiose plan of, I'm going to start a business and change all these lives. And so the opportunity came as I was finishing graduate school. There were some sole proprietor gigs I was involved in, teaching online, in which I was 1099, and some other odds and ends kind of back office consulting. And it was at Patrick Air Force Base is where I was offered the opportunity to subcontract. And I thought, I didn't anticipate this. I thought I would work for maybe 10, 20 years and then go on this entrepreneurial journey. And instead, it was presented right there as I was about to graduate with a PhD. And so I ran with it. And that's where the seed really started to grow, and KPC started to turn into what it is today.
Talk about your company and who do you serve?
We serve primarily the federal government. So we serve Department of Defense, we serve federal agencies, and typically these are agencies who have a lot of work. They always have a lot of work. It could be they have training that it's there. They've been doing it and using it for maybe 10 years, but they want to refresh it. They want to incorporate the latest and greatest, like short form video or newer images. And so they're really concerned with, how are we going to do this? How are we going to take care of updating content when our people are performing their normal jobs? So we do a lot of work around training, curriculum development, updating content, providing facilitators. Then there's also agencies where they need help with staff augmentation. They have government employees who are providing a service. It could be admin, it could be inspection, it could be religious in nature, but they need contractors to help supplement, and they're really concerned with, how are we going to meet our mission? And so then we fill in those gaps. We also sell sometimes different products. The government buys a wide range of things from kosher potato chips to ammunition to computer parts. I mean, you name it, they'll purchase it. And so we'll resell Oculus headsets. We've resold some other odds and ends.
How did you come up with the name for your business?
Growing up, my grandmother Clump worked for a jeweler in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And every holiday, she would give me a piece of jewelry with my initials, which was my full name, Kizzy Marie Parks. And I always loved that. I think I have all of them. And so I thought, I think it would be great to use my name and my initials in the business name because I am the one starting the business. I was the only one in the business. It was just me. So I thought, okay, well, let's do K Parks. And at that time, I think consulting was big, or I knew of other companies with consulting. So I thought, okay, consulting. So then I literally just came up with it and then eventually abbreviated it to KPC because in the early days, many people saw K Parks Consulting as Kizzy, which is awesome. It's great, get you in the door. But I knew I wanted more. And I have well over 50 team members. But to get there, I had to really work on the branding and emphasize, it's KPC. It's not Kizzy. And so that's been really helpful.
Kizzy, you were talking about how it just happened. And someone is listening and saying, it just doesn't happen. You said you didn't have a plan. How did you build this amazing, profitable, sustaining business in government contracting?
I mean, first and foremost is due to God. I'm just going to put that out there first and foremost because I was messy. I was messy and hey, we all have things we have to handle in life. So at that time, I had this great value to offer this agency with my advanced degree, my area of expertise, and the effort, what I've already shown them. So they knew I could deliver. So that's very important. Then once they said, hey, would you subcontract? And I said, yes, that is when the learning began because I had no clue. I knew nothing about government contracting, how to run a business, bookkeeping, hiring. I knew nothing. I knew what I had learned. And so at that point in time, I really kicked into student mode and I soaked up everything. I lived in Melbourne, Florida. I would go to Orlando for small business events, for government events, for mentoring events, for meetings, for lunches, for dinners. I even drove to Jacksonville, which is more than 3 hours away from Melbourne. I drove down to South Florida at the time. I would go and talk to any and everyone to learn how to not only navigate in the sense of how to operate a business, but how to grow the business, how you work with the government, how you handle the requests that they have. So I constantly learn, and I still do that today. There's still things that come up. We had a situation the other day come up that I'd never experienced, and we were able to work through it. So having that mindset of being a student, being curious, and seeking out assistance was just life-changing, especially mentors. I'll never forget this gentleman, his first name is Kevin, out of Orlando, and the fact that he would sit down with me. We met numerous times and he would walk me through something as simple as, here's how you do a capability brief, which is very popular in the federal government, which in essence is kind of like your little road show. You sit down and you're like, here's what we do, or this is why we're great. And I had no idea. And he taught me things like, okay, he's like, Kizzy, when you do this, you don't want to just talk to them. You want to bring them stuff. He's like, I don't care if there's nothing in it. He's like, but bring them so they can see, so that, it helps them envision, and then they hear you. And maybe you have people call in, so it makes it seem like your company's really big. And that advice led to our first $4 million contract, actually. And I'm just so grateful for the learning and the continuous learning. That's how I was able and am able to continuously be successful.
Talk about your business in COVID-19. Talk about the shifts, pivot, and how you've been able to sustain.
Well, one great thing about KPC was out the gate, I did not want it to be like what I experienced growing up. In that my adopted father, worked for several manufacturing companies. He was an industrial engineer, and many of them would close down, relocate, often outside of America. And I just would watch this time and time and time again as a little girl, just people just being displaced and communities changed and just a lot of heartbreak. And I always said to myself, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to operate like that. So with all that said, when I started KPC, we started out very lean. We're extremely virtual. While we have 2 offices, one of them is for security reasons, and then the other office is really just to help with ensuring our training materials are there and to process these forms for a client. Otherwise, no one works in the offices. Everyone is virtual. So that was very helpful in that we have a lot of systems in place to work virtually. Number 2, our client relation skills are phenomenal. They're phenomenal. So when it came to lockdown, and even for those that maybe you still are in a situation of being locked down, or you're not seeing clients, or you're working from home, those client relation skills paid off because we had positions in which they would have furloughed them. So for instance, I had a Catholic youth coordinator. She works for the church. Is that really a position you can do at home? I mean, she did because of our relationship. I had a couple admin. It wasn't in the contract, but because of our relationship, they pivoted and said, yes, you can work from home. So what was really helpful was those relationships. So therefore, about 95% of our team was able to maintain their positions. There were slight changes because I have team members who work on site at a government agencies. So I have a great chunk of them that have to dial in every single day, regardless of where they live, at 8:30 in the morning for a roll call meeting. But I'm so appreciative of that. We did, however, have a contract where in government, they call it a stop work order. So it means you have to stop working on it. So we did lose, some hours on it, but it really had no impact on us because the people who are assigned to that work, they also have jobs with different states because you have to be a state level employee to have the position. So at the end of the day, it didn't really have an impact on our bottom line because 1, the government always pays. 2, if the government's late, you get interest. 3, our killer client relation skills. The one area where we have been impacted is around just PPE. And thankfully, through a women's CEO group that I'm a part of, I was and still am able to get PPE because I have a body of work where I have employees that go out to vape tobacco shops, and they have to inspect them. And they inspect thousands of them a year. So it's required for us now to have PPE and for them to sign all these forms and to participate in contact tracing. So that's been a huge thing for us because those employees are out in the field. For everybody else, I would say it's pretty much business as usual with the exception of, the things that are going on in your household. So that's how we were able to pivot.
So Dr. Kizzy, when I hear you talk about KPC, you have really diversified the business in several different areas with government contracting. Now, are you doing anything in mainstream industry, or is all of your business related to government contracting?
We have, and we still do a little bit. So in the early days, because of my curiosity, I connected with a boutique diversity and inclusion firm. And I reached out to them and asked, do you need someone with my skill set? It seems that maybe you need someone who can analyze data, who's good at creating surveys, who has passion and background in diversity and inclusion, perhaps we can work together. And sure enough, that's how we started getting into the door of Fortune 500 companies because they had maybe at that time, 10, 15 years of experience. And I was right out of graduate school. So who are you going to go with if you're the buying authority? So that was great for many, many years. And recently, maybe over the past 5 years, I've really pivoted away from that just because I prefer the business model of the federal government. We do have a commercial client right now. They are a multinational firm based outside of America. We are providing a diversity and inclusion survey to them through that same boutique firm that I initially connected with back in 2009, 2010. So it's great. Otherwise, the reason that we don't is because my focus is on continuous revenue. Federal government, my contracts average 5 years. And I would rather have a 5-year contract than I get in the door, maybe you get a big payout and that's it. I'm not looking for the lottery. I'm playing the long game. So the energy is focused on other endeavors that will bring in non-government clients per se. There's some products I'm going to roll out. I have a podcast. There's all these other things. But as far as KPC, majority's in federal government, but we diversified within the federal government because I was pigeonholed as the diversity and inclusion expert, which was great. I did a great job of doing that. I love that. I'm so grateful for it. But I also knew, what can we keep offering them? There's going to come a point where it's like, okay, well, that Dr. Kizzy phase was great, but we need to bring in something else or someone else. And so that's why we offer VR curriculum. We do work with Google Glass. I've had IT team members. We inspect vape shops. I have religious team members. I'm bidding on a janitorial contract for the first time ever. So that really helps cushion us if anything ever happens with any of our government clients.
Talk about the worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
That's an awesome question. The scammers. That's been the worst. I feel like I've been in a few American Greed episodes is how I feel. The victim. The worst moment was I'd hired someone from a place of less than. So I started out from a place of less than. And I thought they had something that I didn't, never, coulda, shoulda had. And they're going to help. And they're going to grow. And they're going to do all these amazing things. And that really was not the case whatsoever. And what made it the worst moment was learning the destruction. Because the person was so manipulative. Despite the fact that we were all virtual, so manipulative that I thought everything was fine because of what they would tell me. Everything is fine. Team is great. Clients are great. Everything is great. And there was a particular situation that happened and it told me something's not right. And so I pulled aside one of my team members and I asked that person and they confirmed my worst fear. And then it opened up. It was like, it was crazy. It was beyond a floodgate. I mean, because it went on for 3 years of just finding out information. So what made it the worst was, number one, a 6-figure contract got cut because of this person. Number two, a 5-figure contract got cut because they weren't doing what they needed to do. They just point blank were lying. Turned out they were toxic. Turns out that they really weren't doing anything and misleading me and had me hiring people because they were lazy and didn't want to do any work. And controlled them to the point where they were the gatekeeper. So I didn't know what was going on because they would say, don't go to Kizzy. I talk to her first thing in the morning, last thing at night. So whatever you tell her, I'm going to know. So I will talk to Kizzy. And it was horrible to learn that someone I had trusted was actually just after taking what I had built. They really were working their way to become an owner of KPC. And it was extremely destructive. I mean, literally years went by and it's like, oh my gosh, this is because of this person? What else did they do? I mean, thankfully we recovered. We definitely recovered, but it was very painful. And it made me realize what kind of person they were and what they were really trying to do. And I mean, it was horrible. It's a horrible experience.
What measures did you put in place to ensure that you don't go down that road again?
First and foremost, I started to grow. So one is I started to grow. So I started to take on this perspective of abundance. And I started to grow my confidence and started to figure out, well, what do I want? How do I want to run this company? Where do I want things to go? And secondly, I started to get way more involved, way more involved, because the actions of this person led to tremendous debt. So I got just laser focused on different areas within the business. And in reality, it turned out to be a blessing. And I'm so grateful for it. I mean, it was painful, but looking back, oh my goodness, I learned so much from that. So the abundance, getting involved, and now we have processes and procedures in place. We're ISO certified. And we have accountability measures in place called quality reviews. And the emphasis is on the work, the outcome, what we're measuring, opposed to the person. It's easy to get wrapped up in, oh, they're nice. Oh, they're going through things. Oh, it's COVID. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it, right? And because I would say most of us and those of you listening, we're nice people. We want people to succeed. But in reality, they're screwing you over. But then how do you measure being screwed over? So having these metrics in place and having these systems in place, now I know the flags are way easier to see, because if someone is supposed to attend every meeting and they haven't attended, okay. If they're supposed to follow up with a client in a certain way and they're not, okay. Now we know, opposed to, oh, they're just having a bad day or they just moved. So that's been so helpful.
What can we do right now to support KPC?
Connect on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the first and foremost, is to reach out if you haven't. Kizzy Dominguez, the name will pop up. You'll see the little light bulbs on LinkedIn. Follow me, engage with my content, follow K Parks Consulting on LinkedIn. I would love that. And I'll follow you. I'll engage with you. We're on this huge social media push. So that's where I would love to have your support. But also, I am a huge giver. If there's any way I can be of help, however it is, whatever, please do that. I would love to be able to assist.
There are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or business that's dominating that you admire and why.
There's a few. And these are going to be businesses you may not recognize. It's not going to be the Google or the Microsoft or Apple. There is a business that's extremely successful in government contracting called Management Concepts. I love them. They are dominating in that they started off offering certain type of training courses, and I think now they're well over $50 million a year business. And they dominate in the sense of, I like their social media presence. They've really captured the market. They have so many amazing processes and procedures in place to be able to offer the plethora of courses and content. I like their diversification. And, I've engaged with them. They're very nice. I like their facilities. I like how things are set up. And it's just a great example of how you can take education, or maybe you have a passion for training, or maybe you have a passion to create curriculum, or perhaps you're just an entrepreneur, how you can take that and scale it in a way where you have ongoing revenue. And I think that's awesome. And I love that they offer online classes, blended classes, in-person classes, and they're really quick to pivot, and they've really cornered the market in certain areas in the federal space. So I really admire that too. There's a person who, again, is not really well known, but I really admire her, and I'm learning so much. And her name is Vanessa Lau, and she's out of Canada, and she teaches these online courses on how to create like a coaching program. And what's so powerful about her is that she's in her early 20s. She worked in corporate in marketing, and she finally decided to pivot and go out on her own. And not only did she go out on her own, but, recently she sold, I think, $1.1 million in her product in like 11 days. And she's the sweetest person. She has such a diversity of clients. It's the Boss Graham Academy is her primary product, that I'm just blown away at how she's gone. And I've watched her go from kind of zero, some followers. She was providing a product targeting millennials initially to where she is now. I mean, it's just so admirable to see that all you have to do is be patient, persistent, and just do it.
Dr. Kizzy, talk about your top 2 influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
My top 2 influencers. So definitely my adopted dad, Arthur Parks, Bobby. My dad, wow, he taught me a lot of what to do and not to do, but definitely more of what to do. He always taught me, and he would always say to me, he would say, baby girl, you got to be better than me. And he always encouraged me. So he was born in 1942. He passed away almost 2 years ago. So he would share these stories of when he would go down south to stay with relatives. And he lived through segregation down south, not in Michigan, of course. And he would talk about the lack of opportunities he had in high school, or just lack of opportunities in general. And it was very easy to see because I'm biracial, biologically biracial. And then my mom and dad who adopted me are an interracial couple. So it was also very jarring to see growing up that when we would go to the white family where they would live, and we would go to the black side of the family where my family would live. And there was no difference. I mean, I think I'm the only one in the family with a PhD, high school diplomas, maybe a bachelor's, maybe. There was really no difference other than, I guess, skin tone. And it was very, very jarring to see this over and over and over and over again. And then pairing that with my father's stories, I just thought, wow, he's right. He's like, you now have that opportunity to be better and you can do anything you want. He would always support me, all my kooky ideas and the golf balls and everything I wanted to hustle. And he was always there. Often he would say, don't tell your mom. And he just always supported me. And he also told me, don't take anything from anyone. He was just like, you can do it. I remember distinctly, I believe I was in high school and there was this opportunity to support a gentleman who was running for like a local office. And I was to hold his sign like within the legal space of the voting location. And I was so excited because I was like, oh, this is awesome. I get paid. I basically get to sit down and do nothing. And then I think they had free food. So this was like the best thing ever as a young person. I was like, oh my gosh, this is I can't believe it. So unfortunately, this gentleman lost. And then he never paid me. And I remember my father was like, he's like, Kizzy, just call him. And I remember calling him and he was so taken aback. And it wasn't even that much money. But eventually he paid me. And so it was just another great lesson of just standing up for myself. So I really appreciated that. Definitely appreciated that. The second one, the most influential. Wow. I think the second person who, truly really was the most influential was Dr. Dan McDonald. And he was the research director, I think he still is, at Patrick Air Force Base Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute. And he saw something in me that I never saw in myself. And he's the one that gave me the opportunity to subcontract. He's the one that encouraged me to do all of these, to go to meetings, to meet with people, to present things, to publish. I have a published book with him and we're still in contact today. And he's just always has been this spirit who has uplifted me. And he's also entrepreneurial. So he's provided suggestions. He's helped me in so many different ways, but he gave me that first opportunity. And I'm just so, so grateful. And it's really shaped me because all of those experiences that I went through during that first opportunity, I take them today. It's really helped in the sense of this. So in the federal government, often you'll fill a position. And this is true. IBM, Deloitte, all these companies do it. So they technically work for you, but they're situated at the actual agency. So it could be somebody you're dealing with through the IRS. It could be somebody you're dealing with concerning a passport. It doesn't matter. They're not going to tell you, "Hi, I'm a government contractor." They're just going to, you have no idea on the other end. So imagine the challenge that you work for someone, but you're in a government office and pretty much everyone around you works for the federal government. That's a bit weird because the federal government, government employees have their own rules, regulations, benefits. And now you have to navigate the culture of that environment in addition to the company that pays you. And I watched and learned, because at that time I was the only employee, and I would observe the dynamics of these other contract companies and then their employees. And I would see the conflict of, oh man, I'm not government, I'm a contractor. The government wants me to do this, but my contractor who pays me says not to do it. And so many lessons came out of that as far as what to do, what not to do. And the biggest lesson was you have to make their lives easier. And I'm so grateful for that because I saw so many contractors who just didn't care. It goes back to customer service. Well, I'm providing this to you. This is what you want. Done. Opposed to, well, what's going to make their life easier? If they have asked that everyone dials in at 8:30, everyone dials in. If they have asked that everyone comes in once a week, you go in once a week. It's not a matter of you fight them because then you become a pain and they don't want to work with you anymore. So that was just such a great lesson from Dr. McDonald.
Talk about your book or books.
So I have an edited book on managing diversity in the military. It came out a while ago. It actually it was a while ago. And what was so pivotal about that book, it was at the time there really wasn't anything new on the topic of diversity and inclusion and the federal government, period. It just really wasn't anything. And it was a labor of love, and I knew that it was needed. It was published by Routledge Publications at the time. And what was great about that book is it just further solidified my expertise. So it wasn't something in which I was hoping that it would make the bestseller list or I would get rich off of it. It was just something that was, academic. I knew that it would also expand my networks based on those that I asked to contribute a chapter. It's an edited book. I knew that it would make Dr. McDonald happy and it would help him with his legacy down the road. So he could show, oh, wow, I have this, I'm a, author on this book. And so I'm very grateful for that. I have journal publications. Because of my background, I felt compelled probably the first maybe 5 years or so. I knew that not only earned the PhD because I have a love for psychology, but I love research. And I made an effort to publish. So I have numerous publications out there. I'm not really in that space anymore. I feel like, okay, I've left my mark. I've published, I have the book, I have book chapters, I have presentations, and now my focus is all on the social media side. So that's just, a little bit about the publication history.
Dr. Kizzy, what problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve?
That's a great question. There are a lot. There are many. I always have a business idea or think there's a problem, I need to solve it. So the one I'm looking to solve right now is there are many people, including maybe those of you listening, that think, wow, I want to get in the federal government. Or especially as we go through COVID, many have said, well, I want to work for the federal government because it seems like you guys did well, or they pay on time. And you mentioned they give you interest, which they do. And I think that's great. The federal government is the largest purchaser, I believe, in America. They have ample money, they pay. They have long-term contracts, as I stated. So the problem is people enter this space, businesses, solopreneurs, and then they end up upset. There are some contract vehicles where there are 2,000 businesses on there, and fewer than half have received a contract worth $25,000. And so the problem is helping small businesses navigate and win contracts. So that's the big problem that I'm focused on right now.
What are you reading now?
I'm reading a lot. Okay, I'm always reading Eat the Frog to remind me to take care of my big task. I'm looking over my book here. I'm reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. I have books throughout. So I have books on sales that sometimes I'll pick up. Like I really love Grant Cardone. I love his content. I love his online portal. I read that. I have, I have amazing books that I pick up when needed on influence, psychology of influence. I have a couple of those. And then just because of how I learn, I also need videos. So as I kind of pivot and do way more on social media, I'm watching more tutorials or observing what other people are doing and then unpacking, okay, how do I do that on Instagram? Or how do I really maximize my TikTok account? Okay, what's my approach for Twitter? Or, okay, how do I really maximize this area on LinkedIn? So it's a combination of reading the books, the videos, but what's most important is I know how I like to learn. And so I just, again, pick them up as I need it. Those are some of the things I'm reading right now.
Advice you wish you had followed.
Fire faster. Oh my goodness. Hire slow, fire fast. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have. And, now I know. Now I know you really have to take your time when you bring someone on. You really do. And when they're not performing based on the metrics that you have in place, you have to let them go so they can find magic elsewhere.
Dr. Kizzy, talk about that aha moment when you knew your business was going to be successful.
It was 2013, September, and I got the phone call that we were awarded a $4 million contract. When that happened, I was just in awe. And it was awesome because then I lost my contract at Patrick Air Force Base. And I remember giggling on the phone when I was told. He probably thought I was insane because I was subcontracting and he called and said, they've made budget cuts and they cut your work. And I started laughing and I was just like, that's okay. I'm like, I have this new door with the USDA and I'm running through it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like going to really work. Like, I was like, I can't believe this. And there have been some other moments like that. Like when we won the vape work with the FDA, I was like, oh my gosh, again, like there are times when that imposter syndrome, it kind of pops up. It still does. It's like, is this for real? Is this really my life? Like I have the greatest life. My life is amazing. I have amazing team members who change people's lives. Amazing team members who follow this woman who was just a little girl in Michigan with dreams. It's amazing. So those are some things. And then lastly, the social media, because I was scared. I saw it. I could feel it. I know. I'm like, I have to pivot again. I really have to do more on social, build my brand, build KPC, push out products and services, socially start a YouTube channel. Because if not, what's going to happen? I'm going to work on government contracts until I'm like 80. Nothing wrong with it because there are people who do it. Nothing wrong with that. That's not what I want to do at all. I'm an entrepreneur. And so I'm just so excited for that.
What are you grateful for right now in your life?
I am grateful for my health. I'm grateful for being alive. I'm grateful to my team. I'm grateful to all the people who support me, like with my weight loss journey. I'm grateful to Derek and Megan and Andy and Kenny and Denise. I love all of them. I am just so grateful. And I am so grateful that I have the blessings that I have in my life. Because it's not about the things. It's not about the image that one may have of me. It's about how do I make people feel? What do I do when no one's looking? And I'm so grateful that I understand that and I'm able to do it and that I have humility. So I'm grateful for many things and people.
You talked about your podcast. You are starting a podcast, or tell us about that.
I started a podcast and a new brand called Adult Fluent. So the podcast will be available where you can access podcasts. And the premise of Adult Fluent is that, often, if you think back to your formative years, you think, gosh, I should have my stuff together. Or why didn't I learn this from anyone? Or you look out and you're like, dang, Sam's over here killing it. And I'm like still living with my parents. And so I thought, I really want to create this brand to show people. It's targeting young people, but the lessons are amazing and apply to everyone. This brand to show people, to inspire people, for them to really understand, like, you don't have to have all your stuff together. Nobody has all their stuff together. And to hear real life stories of people who have overcome and to see where they are or to get them on their journey. So for instance, one of my guests, Dr. Malik Boykin, he is a college professor at Brown University. And he was a rapper for 10 years. And it's just, he has such a fascinating story. I mean, imagine like being a rapper, now you're a professor at an Ivy League school. I mean, that's crazy. Or I have another guest where he talks about how he's 22, he's married, he's like, I have a baby, I got a wife, he's like, I got a job, but I'm still doing it. And he's talking about his journey on YouTube. And I thought, wow, that's like powerful advice, because we always have these, these obstacles we put out there. I have another guest, which is one of my favorites. He hosts the Sleep With Me podcast. And his podcast has 3.5 million downloads a month. And it was so exciting to hear how he really struggled with his inner critic, and that he knew he didn't want to do what he was doing. He had a daughter, and he said he was working on empowering her and teaching her you can do and be anything you want. And he said, but I wasn't doing that myself. And he started his podcast about 7 years ago. And now that's his full-time job. That's his income, is his podcast, and 3.5 million downloads. That's amazing. I would love that for all of us. And so many guests like that, with these just amazing backgrounds and amazing stories where they just give you hope. And hopefully those that listen understand, like, oh, wow, I don't have to have everything together. Not today, not tomorrow, not even 10 years from now. I just have to go on this journey and keep doing and just not give up.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
I think I probably would have asked myself, is Kizzy your real name? Because people always wonder. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Family, they were influenced by the book and movie Roots.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. Dr. Kizzy, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to answer them quickly. If it's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
I am ready.
The last movie you saw?
I did see one. I do not remember what it was.
You relaxed doing what?
Talking to friends, going on social media.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
I have many. I mean, I love Cardi B. She's my favorite.
Your favorite dance song?
Okay. Favorite dance song, Hot Walk by Mr. Vegas.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Brussels sprouts.
Your favorite month?
May.
Your first job?
Telemarketing.
Workout or hit the couch?
Oh, work out all the time. It's at least 6 to 7 days a week.
Dr. Kizzy, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Before we let you go, why don't you share with our audience the best way they can connect with you? Give them all your social media handles, and we so appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. I appreciate the audience. I am so excited, Dr. Richards. So the one way you all can connect with me is I am on Community. It's a text-based community. I share motivation. I'm going to share tips. I'm going to share way more. So please text me at 305-853-9481, 305-853-9481, and let me know that you listen. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, Kizzy Dominguez, K Parks Consulting. You'll see me. Also, I would love to connect with you on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. My handle is at Kizzy, KPC. And on Instagram, it's Kizzy M. Dominguez. For those of you on TikTok, please connect with me. And if you're not on TikTok, get on TikTok. There's so many professionals and entrepreneurs. It's an amazing platform. My name is also Kizzy M. Dominguez on TikTok, so please follow me there. By you following me on Instagram, you'll already receive my feed from Facebook. Those are the main places to follow me. So please text, please reach out. If you want to check out the website for the business, it's kpcinc.com. And just please reach out. If you DM me on LinkedIn, I will reach out. We can connect. Same thing through text. If you say, hey, I would love to pick your brain, let's do it. So many people have given to me. So many. The least that I can do is continue this. I always give. I always mentor. So however I can be of help, please reach out.
Thank you, Dr. Kizzy. That's a wrap. Our guests have sent us so much swag, books, and giveaways this year. I can't wait to announce our monthly winner. So if you want exclusive content delivered right to your inbox and to enter into our monthly drawing, go to drfrancisrichards.com and subscribe to our mailing list. That's drfrancisrichards.com. drfrancisrichards.com. That's drfrancisrichards.com and subscribe to our mailing list. We promise we will not spam you or sell your information.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.